I'm starting it now.
All right, so welcome to Budget Workshop 5, our final review of our budget. And our goal again is to provide business direction through transparency and detail. And for the most part, the numbers are still a little fluid, but we'll zero in on that points tonight. So tonight's workshop points will be review of a school resource officer, or RSO, extra classroom activity funds, and then we'll do the final review of our 23-24 budget, updated administrative program and capital, updated expenditures and revenue estimates, and we'll also review the property tax report card. In the last few weeks, we've obviously have nationwide felt a little angst that there are some safety concerns and feeling protected in the school. So I never even knew what this title was just until a few weeks ago, so I did a lot of research. And the school resource officer is a very important role to schools today. And the roles of that SRO, it assists the school administration in maintaining a safe and secure environment. It provides a highly visible presence to deter or identify trespassers, responsible for investigating violations of criminal law, positive role model, endorsing high moral standards, law-related counselor, assist in conflict mediation efforts, and provides crisis and emergency training to faculty and staff. And those are just highlighted key points to what this role is. They are not a school disciplinarian. So again, principals will deal with behaviors. This is more of a criminal, more of a, trying to talk children down, de-escalation. Fort Edward Union Free School District is one of the last school districts in Warren, Washington, and Saratoga counties without an RSO. So if we do contract with Washington County Sheriffs, we have to budget $52,000. I actually did my due diligence and tried to find grants. There is an awesome grant out there from the federal government. Unfortunately, it sounded too good to be true. It's one of those that they allow the municipality to do a 3-year grant. So it would be $125,000, but it's a 75-25% grant. So the municipality would have to cover the 25%. So they are absolutely not willing to do that. And they were very clear on when they created it back in 2018. This was a self-sustaining process where schools would pay in their budget. This is not a money maker for the county. So the Sheriff's Department is not making any money off of this program. They're offering it to school districts. They are retired police officers. So they're already fully trained police officers that then have this RSO training, and they would be on site for the school year of the 10-month contract.
So when you say the grant, the municipality has to pick up 25%. You mean the village of Fort Edward has to pick up?
It would actually be Washington County. So the
Washington
grant.
County's not willing to do that.
Correct. Yes, because most of the county already has an SRO. Many of them have multiple. So Hudson Falls, I think, has at least 3. But every school district in Washington County, besides us, Putnam and Cambridge, has their village police go 4 times a day to the school to kind of offset this program. But that's part of what their contracted village police to do. But us and Putnam right now are the only ones who really don't have any police presence in our school.
And the county doesn't do it for any school district.
They do it for those who
They do it for they don't do the grant thing. Right?
Correct. What happens is the grant, again, is written as the primary grant writer, which must be the municipality who hires the said police officer. So what happens is even the language of the law, like we could not be the grant writer. It has to be the municipality, and whoever is the grant writer has to put up the 25%. So I was even saying we would put up the 25%, we could get this grant, we would pay for it, and it's absolutely kibosh. It's not how the program's worked. And the Washington County then would say Fort Edward wouldn't benefit from all of it, it would then have to spread out to all the county. So the grant itself would be something they possibly consider, but they're not going to because everybody puts it in their budget. And then we would not get the real savings, it would then spread out to all the school districts. So it's just not, it's not conducive. It was kind of those, how federal grants sometimes are written the practicality of obtaining that money isn't always a reality. So it's like, we were trying to keep the schools safe, and that's kind of the idea behind it, but they kind of write their hands off it, knowing municipalities like Washington County would never do the 25%.
Yeah, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it.
Right.
So that person does not become a school employee. They're
not.
Contracted
Correct.
vendor for better.
100%. And actually, all the benefits, sort of like with the FEH BOCES, all their benefits, all of that is covered within that cost. So they're retired police officers who are Washington County Sheriff's Department employees that are now coming back to do this service for the school.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, but this hire would have to be discussed at a full board meeting, right?
Correct. We're doing the presentation also with the board. Yes.
Okay.
And that would be for 5 days a week,
Correct.
4 days,
Yes.
our own person, not
Absolutely.
shared somewhere else.
Yes. And within the contract, I was even reading some of that. We would have to provide them an office and all. It's pretty well constructed.
And there-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And there is, I think you mentioned it, but I want to clarify, they are retired officers, and there is a specific SRO training that
Correct.
they actually take to
Yes.
then be in the school district.
100%.
Correct, yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yep.
This doesn't have to be a proposition, right? It's just a board decision?
It's just a board decision. Yep. But I wanted to
Based
present
on
it
what
tonight.
you're
Yep.
saying, that we do have the money to budget for this.
Correct, yes.
for
This
next
isn't
year.
our, this
Okay.
isn't our current budget right now,
Okay.
so.
Take some of that
Which
budget money to
after-
fix the TV.
After
You mean
the
with the-
last few weeks sidebar of working in a public school, the couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks leading up to spring break with this swatting,
Yes.
things that were occurring, it was, I don't even know what word to use, but I'm very glad to see this.
Yes.
I tell you, it's changed, because when I was at Bolton, they weren't called SROs, it didn't get that, wasn't that formal, but the county, we got, if any of the schools in the county wanted one, they would put an active trooper or a sheriff there, so by 3 days a week we had one. And I'm telling you where it was an advantage to a place like them, and it will be here, because they didn't have their own local force. Summertime they did, other than that, no local force, so the kids' relationship with the police department was what they saw on TV or what they had heard.
Mhm.
So we brought this guy in, and we got lucky that we got to go in 3 days. He was wonderful with the kids, reacted with the kids, interacted well. I took him on field trips so that there was no fear between kids and the police. That there was no preconceived things set in the kids' head because of what he said or heard. This is what actually happens. So it actually worked out well. And besides, he helped a lot. Like you said, they're out there to do discipline. If there's big issues, yes. If something, if we had made like even off hours, if somebody was prowling on the building, whatever, they're available. It was for us. It was a very good program.
Great program. For that one has Des Lyons, and he loves it. He's doing a great job up there.
Yeah, see, he'd be good. He's got the personality.
He's doing a great job up there. We do some contract work for schools, but, you know, you can't beat having a retired police officer.
No, which is dedicated here. Like when they had brought up 5 days a week, ours was sporadic, so you didn't get anything consistent. So you didn't know.
And even from a
Consistency.
comparative cost, Saratoga County is at 75,000 a year, and Warren County is running in the middle 60s.
Wow.
So
A
it's
contracted on, security officer would cost you 77,000 a year.
correct. So Saratoga County is, again, astronomical. We're getting a good savings with Washington County. That's why they're not making any price on this. It's truly a service.
It
to
is
our
good because I
schools.
think Warrensburg was discouraged from hiring another one because of that ratio, 60-something thousand.
Correct.
I saw that in there.
Correct. And some of the school districts like Luzerne and Corin, and I think Lake George, they have 2 on site.
Hmm.
So just so you know, one is not a bad price tag for us. So I would highly encourage you to look into this. One of the things we need to discuss tonight is extra classroom activity funds. In my research, of course, being fairly new to school business, hearing people say, well, we've never done that before. That's usually a trigger and a red flag for me. Why did we never do this before? Why did we never use our general fund to fund, trap clubs, or why we didn't pay for the scripts for the drama club? The reason is, under the law, we cannot use tax-saved monies or monies that you as a Board of Education have approved for student body, school, and subdivisions. So of course, with the school budget, we cannot fund we can only fund the advisors for co-curricular activities. We cannot we cannot fund anything else. It has to be self-sustaining. So through fundraisers, through dues, through getting a donor, those are the kind of things that, why we've never done it, is because it's actually against ed law. So I wanted to review that tonight because we've had some confusion. Now that I have a little bit more clarity and read the guidelines, it was a 75-page guide from the state ed. That's why we have never done it, is because there's actually laws against funding it through taxated monies, programs that are extracurricular. Any questions on that?
Sports are different.
Sports are different, and we can still do the advisors for the co-curricular.
Yeah, the education program. You go back as a technology.
So,
Oh, yes.
just if I could chime in quick, two things. I think, back into the SRO, I think unfortunately the way of the world is now, I don't think we can really avoid not having one. I think it would be a liability if something did go down and we were the only ones in the area that didn't have one. That's just Rich DeMalley's thought, you can mull that around. And I agree with Amanda, the swatting incidences, all the things you're seeing on the news. It's hard to say that if Chris is saying the money is there, which I think that's what he's saying,
Yes.
it'd be hard not to have one. This one, what this means for us is, I think you remember we went back and said, hey, you know what, we'll help the track club out, we'll buy some things for esports, we'll do these things. Unbeknownst to me, until Chris brought it up, that is an absolute no-no, for lack of a better term. So, just so you're aware, I'll bring it up in my report later, but I'll just give you a taste. I did speak to Mr. Herman, Mr. Boucher. They have approached the boosters, they're gonna help them out a little bit. So that's fantastic. And we did have an esports meeting prior to break, and we are looking at a BYD type of possibility, where you bring your own device and possibly being able to use it in that way. So
Do we need to, so for example, with the trap where we did approve to cover costs, do we need to somehow as a board go back and retract that approval formally, like on an upcoming agenda or anything? With an explanation as to why?
I don't remember if we voted on that or not. I don't recall voting on it though.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was a discussion, absolutely. I don't
Definitely
know.
discussion, okay.
I don't know if we moved on.
I don't remember that.
Oh,
But we haven't cut any checks. We haven't done anything in that manner, so.
Okay.
So, just a question.
Yeah.
Transfers between clubs, is that possible? So
Absolutely,
The
yes,
advisor of the drama club says, wow, we got $4,000 in
Correct.
here, we can kind of help out trap.
100%,
That can happen, right?
yes, 100%.
And then we've got some other funds, like leftover funds from classes that have been allocated by the student council.
Correct.
But perhaps there could be a plea from those clubs, hey, student council, can we
Yes.
have some, so that's totally doable?
It's totally
In this
doable.
time, remember, because we talked about it a couple of years ago, because all that money was sitting dead in one of those funds, and I know what we did at school, is we transferred, if that was just sitting there dead, we would transfer into the student council funds, which is everything was funded from there.
Yeah.
So we moved it, which is legal,
Yes,
we just, so we put it once, and then everybody had access to there, so I would distribute it from there.
So I'm sure there's some money in there that each individual class or club might say, hey, you know what, we'll give you guys $100 here,
Right.
or whatever, so maybe that could be something that's done to help.
the only one I would probably put a red flag on is the backpack club, because it is truly donated funds specifically for backpack, but I would say every other club is free game, if they're willing
I'll
to.
bet a pretty substantial, cause ticket sales and fundraising and all that stuff, I mean, this is a couple of years ago, but so maybe they can help out some things, I don't know.
But I just wanted to give some clarity and some education as we go along for myself, but also I knew this was a major question as we were trying to advise as we go along with budgeting. So here's our administration budget, part one. Again, I broke it into chunks because it's so big, but this is still mostly what we have done. One thing I have also in the editing process, and again, this was brought up to my attention, we truly had nothing for what they call a .2 code. So anything for equipment. So one thing a lot of our teachers have been telling me is we need library furniture because they're horribly unsafe and people sitting in chairs, they could hurt themselves and whatnot. So I said, well, where are we gonna do that? What codes can we use? And of course, my advice was, oh, put it in the .2 codes. I'm like, what do you mean .2? All of my budget that I inherited was mostly constructed for contingency budget. And that's the first thing to go, our equipment. So I kept going, well, we didn't have any .2 codes. So we've added some .2 codes. We did have some of that wrestling money that we left in the budget that we kind of were like, what are we gonna do with wrestling? We can't do obviously clubs if it's not a team. So some of that money we were already mulling over. I've invested some of that into equipment. So if you see a .2 code, specifically right here at the 500, there was nothing for equipment there from the previous budget. There was, so that's what I've done, and there is actually $11,500 for possible equipment for next year, using the monies that we had left over and some of these budget items that we weren't using.
And Tom, if I jump back for a second, remember we talked about here, so we put some money in the student council fund because there was a ton, there's $24,971 sitting there now. So I mean, that's all dispersible because it's been pretty static. It hasn't changed, but we put it in there, so kill the dead fund and then have something we have access to.
Right.
So that was the purpose that we did that, so that is there.
Yeah.
Almost 25,000.
Good. So this again, part 2 of the administration budget. There was no changes to this one. This was pretty much consistent to our other former presentations. And one other thing that came to mind as I was putting the final edits to our budget was specifically with support staff. Since we are now in negotiations to do contractual, it was relayed to me through the process that my budgeted previous number was a little bit lower than where we're probably going to land. And we'll talk about this later this evening, but I needed to uptick some of those salary projections. So that's where you saw the highlighted there with the non-instruction. That's part of the support staff. It's a little bit higher, just because again, we're landing at a higher percentage than what was previously budgeted. So we want to just make sure we have enough money in our budget for that strategy as well to make sure that they're under contract. Another one, if you look at this contract transportation at 65,000, we previously budgeted for 35. My intel was that we weren't really using Durin anymore, but now that I've been looking at the receipts and we actually are budgeting, we have more money that we're spending than we actually were anticipating. That's such a hard projection. We did 95 the previous year. We are hoping to have a better handle, and we are landing closer to what we were projecting here at 65 instead of the 30,000 that I projected earlier. So that is the difference which we had from last year's budget, but again, it was a higher price tag than what we previously were presenting. So I wanted to be transparent on that as well. And another one, talking to Sarah Bradshaw, is we really wanna make sure we have the capital outlay available for next year so that we can start investing into our capital project. And that was another price tag that was not initially presented, because this is another code that's not always in every budget. So through my education myself and putting this together, I realized, okay, this needs to also be added in.
Can you get aided on the transportation contracts?
Yes, you can.
So that's question number 1, and then question number 2, which I thought you could.
Yep.
I think each year though, they have to go out to bid.
We do
and
bid
make your
for,
choice,
yes, we do bid for
so that
contracts.
then you can get reimbursed.
Correct.
Because
There
there
is
was
a-
something that
yes.
had happened here within the last year or 2.
That's correct.
Where it didn't go out to bid, but they finagled stuff and were able to get
Correct.
aided, so.
And we learned through that situation to make sure we're doing those proper steps.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
So yes, it has to go out to bid, so that then therefore we get the state aid. And for that word again, here is 90% for transportation aid. So.
So, and does that, that gets aided throughout the 10 months and summer program, like
Correct,
anytime you're using it throughout
correct.
the year?
Whatever transportation, as long as we're doing the right steps,
Right,
we get that 90% back for transportation aid, correct.
Okay.
And with the capital outlays, eventually we will, because that's part of building aid, we will get 95% of that back, because that's our building aid, our reimbursement. So again, Sarah is very wise on how she wants us to fund this, so having that as a capital outlay we have that in our budget.
Okay.
The top one, is the operational plant, and that was, again, due to the support staff increase. We previously budgeted, but I needed to uptick some of those salaries as well, just as we are aligning. It wasn't a huge extra amount, but it does add up, so I wanted to also show we increased that line a little bit as well. And where we are putting that SRO, that 52,000 title, would be right here, the operation of plant contractual. So they are under contract, that is part of our operation of our plant. And I reached out to other SBOs, and that's where, again, back in 2018, they all decided that's where the best place to land that position would be.
Okay.
And here is our breakdown for administration, capital, and program. Our appropriations budget that I'm presenting for 23-24 is $12,449,626.16. 12% will be administration cost, 14% is capital, and 74% is our program. And this actually is our estimated expenditures. This is everything. This is also going to be in our pathways. But one number I wanted to highlight, because I want to show how it is reflective, is our difference between last year's budget and this year's is $670,278.46 And the number I want to kind of compare it to, keep in mind with our estimated revenues, this is right now still the worst case scenario. The state will give us almost $700,000. So the difference between the 697 and the 670, it's almost $30,000. So we are kind of in what we got extra from the state, we actually have lower than what they are giving us. So I want to kind of show you that comparative from a business standpoint. That means we kind of landed well, and we are still under 6% from the difference of last year's budget and this year's proposed. This is how it's broken down. So our tax levy, it's $77,800 is the dollar difference with a 2.2% change. Other income, that's also increased with the extra square footage that we're renting to New Meadow. We have our state projection. And again, these numbers will be higher. It cannot be lower. These are a low projection that has not been finalized, but I wanted to give you at least the closest thing to right now what we're getting. We do not have the community school set aside, so that is really some of the difference from monies from the past. That's not a bad thing. Those are usually the schools that are in desperate need for extra help. So it's good in some ways that we're not getting that money, but again, it's always good to have extra money. But and then of course our fund balance, what we are using this year to balance our budget is $361,463.16, which is $41,000 less than last year's. So with all of the obstacles that we faced, the challenges that we overcame, this budget is landing pretty well in the aspect that it's still under 6%. And this is our property tax report card. This is the first section, so as I did a one part here, this will break it down a little bit. And specifically with less than 6%, what does that mean? When our consumer price index is 8%, meaning all the costs of goods, everything that we kind of pay for, it has increased by 8%. So food and gas, all of that combined, nationwide, this is the CPI. So to have a budget that's less even than 6% in a difficult environment where everything is expensive, things cost a lot of money. We do have, again, less than 6% change from the previous budget. I also wanted to make note in the fact that our property tax report card also is including our enrollment. And this was the latest figure from last week. We are at 366. So we actually are 11% lower than last year at this time.
That's a big number.
57 kids
And this is our property tax card part 2. And this is mostly, again, the fund balance relationships. So We are still trying to do a deep dive. It's hard when we just are getting state aid funded back again. We all know with the auditing process, we didn't get the monies as fluid as we usually like. So it's hard to really kind of predict this. That's why these are estimated. So Sarah's gonna show you some extra numbers tonight as she presents the 5-year plan. Using some numbers we're kind of landing similarly, but there right now might be a description. I wanna be transparent. We might actually have $400,000 less, up more than what we're projecting. So, and the reason why,
Repeat that, Chris?
the amount of money that we are sort of in feeling, are we gonna land? It's this number right here. The appropriated fund balance that was used for last year to budget the balance of the budget has not been touched. So that could actually uptick this to almost $1 million. So just so you wanted to let you guys know, it's not yet official, that's why it's still an estimate. But I wanted to give you kind of, this is still what I'm projecting as like a bad opportunity, like the worst case scenario. We truly might have $400,000 extra. So we're just figuring that out. So,
When do you see the,
yes.
when do you see, what is your group saying about the state budget being adopted?
Again, it's gonna be presented, but then the official vote happens like June or whatever to adopt the whole thing. So the process takes a lot longer than just when she comes out with, when the governor comes out with numbers. It still has to go through their own legislation process, and we're not hearing anything anytime soon. It has to go through that process. That's why that number, this is truly our worst case scenario. So even with this number, we are doing much better. So the amount of money that we were expecting to have extra from last year is paid for entirely by the state aid that we are getting extra from last year.
Yeah, that shouldn't change, because they're not haggling hard numbers, they're haggling politics.
It is.
That's what's holding the whole thing up, so the numbers should be pretty solid.
I still projected slightly lower, so this still will probably be increased, but again, when I do projections, I really am kind of wanting to give you like worst case scenarios. So that's where we're landing. And any questions?
Great job as always, Chris.
Well, I'm excited because again, as I said before, this just means that Fort Edward is here to stay and we now have financial security, and I think we're moving it forward. Through my education, educating you guys as well, you guys educating me, doing this as a team, I think we're going in the right direction. So I appreciate all of your help, and I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Thank you so much.